struck the State House budget expenditure over the presidents that we have seen as a country since proper State House records began. What we do know is that the latest supplementary budget does really indicate that State House expenditure has effectively doubled within the current financial year. Now, the Office of the President, that is President Dr. William RUTO, is asking for 17 billion shillings annually. Let's go back a bit and see what President Uhuru Kenyatta was spending. The Office of the President was initially allocated 8.58 billion shillings for the 2025-2026 financial year. And this one was also an increase from the previous administration's expenditure. Now, Treasury data is also indicating this morning that spending had already exceeded the original full year budget months before the fiscal year closed. By January 2026, according to Treasury, State House had spent about 10.4 billion shillings against an approved 7.7 billion shillings, so about 3 billion on top of what they're supposed to spend, meaning that the office had already exhausted more than 100% of its annual recurrent allocation, with months still remaining in the financial year. Now, let's go back a bit and see how historically, President have spent this money, because President Mwai Kibaki was spending an average of 4 billion shillings annually as a government maintained a relatively smaller executive office. All right. If you go back to 2017-2018, we were spending about 6.5 billion shillings in the year 2017-2018, and later surpassing the 7 billion shillings as government expanded executive operations and security functions. Now, the biggest we've ever seen before this was around 7 billion shillings. Now, we are talking about 17 billion shillings at a time when the president and any other government official is telling us that the government is struggling. There is no money to pay teachers. There is no money for proper service delivery across the country. But where there is money is in the top office. They're even eating into their annual budget months before we get to June. So we're in March now. So that means 3 months before June, they've already exhausted the yearly allocated budget. That's what we talk about this morning. It also comes at a time when the country has to come to terms with the disaster that is the long rains now, that are also, by the way, going to start again in April. We talk about that this morning. More money for President Dr. William RUTO. Does it mean proper service delivery and increased performance for the government? We'll be looking at some of the trips that is taken out of the country, some of the places where this money is going to, as we ask those proper questions this morning. You can also indulge with us this morning at Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. This is The Morning Drift. Our lines are online right there. Talk to us on WhatsApp. We shall talk to you. The hashtag is The Morning Drift. I do hope that your estate is dry and fair this morning. From what we're seeing here from the Met Department, it looks as if this morning majority parts of Nairobi have not woken up to the rain that we've seen for the past 3 days. And we do know that we already lost around 31 people and over 71 cars swept away in this flood. If you are a victim, we are sorry as Look Up TV. The only thing that we can say is please stay safe, stay clear of the floods. Good. On that note then, let's cross over to our dailies this morning. See exactly how you are waking up this morning. And as usual, we're going to start with the Daily Nation, see exactly what they're talking about. It is the floods, all right? In fact, I should correct it because this morning then the Daily Nation is telling us that the death toll from the deluge has now risen to 42. So we've lost 42 Kenyans out of the recent floods. Now they're saying flood warnings that were ignored. Auditor General Nancy Gathungu and a 2024 audit following devastating floods exposed systemic weaknesses, including ignored early warnings from the Kenya Meteorological Department. The report recommended measures to improve the state's emergency response, but as it gathers dust, disaster has struck again 2 years later with a tragic consequences. Our story has been covered on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation. Let's look at some of the faces then. You know, it's until you start putting faces and names to the 42 that then you start to see the gravity of this disaster. We don't have Geoffrey Rono, those have drowned in floods. We don't have Mr. Martin Amani, Rain Taji, just a small kid right there, who has also drowned in the floods. We don't have Philip Omondi, Alex Njuki, and Rose Akimuran. Now they're saying children crossed the flooded section of their homes at Konyango village in Kuala location, Homa Bay County. Yesterday, at least 300 people have been displaced by the floods in the area as well. That picture right there of these kids, and that is their home in the background. It's sad reality of these floods as well. I mean, if anything is true about this particular headline here, and some people need to be called to account. Yeah. Can't just sit and then wait for more floods again to come. Guess what? We're going to be getting that again. Wait for April again. We're talking about floods within the city, people displaced. That's when the government will come in and start moving people to higher ground. Can we ever get ready as a country for this kind of disasters? As the question that is asked here. Now, there's a story here on ports on sale. Now, the government is on the final stages of repealing the Kenya Ports Authority Act to pave way for the privatization of sections of the Mombasa port and the 3 berths at the Lamu port. All right, now the move would essentially see the authority being dissolved and reconstituted as a public limited liability company under the Companies Act. Now we do know because we did have the shares of Kenya Ports Authority being floated for the entirety of last month and into this month as well. Now this is part of the finalization of that deal of making KPA a limited company where you can go in, buy and trade in their shares. Hopefully you were part of some of the Kenyans who were offered about 7 billion worth of shares. Good, let's cross over to the Standard this morning as well. See what we are talking about. Here we are. It's the same story that we are waking up to as well. It's impunity. That's the story here. Sudanese warlord Algoni Hamdan Musa was granted a Kenyan passport on August 27th, 2024, when Julius Bitok served as Principal Secretary for Immigration Services and Evelyn Shedegut as Director General. Now, this reckless decision, they say, dented the credibility of Kenya's passport, one of the country's most trusted documents. Yet, despite being linked to the issuance of passports to foreigners with questionable backgrounds, including figures blacklisted by the United Nations, the 2 officials remain in office amid public outrage. Story has been covered on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. That is Evelyn Shedegut right there, Director, Immigration Services. There's also Julius Bitok, who is the Principal Secretary, Immigration. All right, it's a picture dated 2025 April. And that's the story again that was covered there, the RSF passport shame that has put Kenyan passport on the bad font internationally. That's exactly what we have there. And if you go back to a day before, there's just a lot of other pictures that have been covered there of floods across the country. There are also stories that have been covered right here within the Standard that you may want to have a look at them. Right, let's look at the pullout this morning, see what they have on health and science. I've been told we have it this morning. Just waiting for it to appear here so we can talk about it. There it is. They're talking about habits every woman needs to stay strong and healthy. Yeah. Was it yesterday when we were marking International Women's Day? Should have started by saying happy International Women's Day to all our women audience. You're truly treasured. There's a story here for you. Page 4 and 5, as the world marks International Women's Day, the focus turns to women's wellness through healthy diets, fitness, self-care, cancer screening, and managing stress for better quality life. That story has been covered on page 4 and 5. There's also a story here on genital warts, the small rash that hints at something dangerous. Story has been covered on page 2. There's also a reprieve here, how mental health, alcohol and substance abuse tax relief works. Story has been covered on page 7. Good. Now you do know exactly what it is that you're waking up to this morning in terms of your dailies. Majority of the stories have also been covered on our social media platforms. Look Up TV across all of them. Once you're there, a like, a subscription. You can even say hi to us this morning. We shall say hi back to you as well. That's the only thing that we do ask this morning. Now, good. Let's see what Kenyans are talking about online in terms of your trends. We're going to start with Sifuna and Babu Wino. They're still moving across the country, drumming up support for what they're saying is the true cause of ODM. I'll be telling you why this is important. Let's take a look at it and then come back and talk.
Shida kubwa ni mimi nimesema afadhali hata tuwache tu, lakini Kasongo hatumpatii kura. Haiwezekani. Hata kama watu wameisha hii Kenya, hata kama wanaume hawako, situkuje basi tuchukue mama mboga hapa Mkuyuni. Tuweke hela kwa rais. Kina mama oye. Wamama mnaweza hamwezi. Wangapi wanasema Kasongo aende nyumbani?
That is Edwin Sifuna and Babu, all right? They didn't plan for it. They visited Makueni, and then they went right ahead to hold that public rally, and there was a huge turnout that followed. And the only thing that they did indicate is that Oburu and his squad who were in Siaya at a time, with the president as well, by the way, at a time when Babu and Sifuna were talking about this, that they were just waiting. They said that they were waiting for Baba to die so they can start chasing people away from ODM. That's the message they had for them. All right, let's just look at a couple of responses here. Jonathan saying, I was on my way to Wote, Makueni. The traffic that really caused was unbelievable as people really tried to go in and listen to Babu and Sifuna. All right. Chris Mugoma was saying the government, and he's saying the government, government, I'm just reading what he said, will say it was a market day, all right? Ole Choka was saying Sisi into Sifuna, Sisi Nwababa was saying only Sifuna as a politician is acceptable everywhere in Kenya. Wakili was saying tupe agenda, wacha nonsense. Bwana Sifuna situpatie agenda, tunaenda wapi? All right, finally then, Aboge who's saying Sifuna, Babu are the future, Kenyans are happy. Good. That's what Sifuna and Babu Wino were trying to do this weekend. Now the president attended a PS, medical services in the country, that is PS Oluga Thanksgiving ceremony. Let's take a look at this and see how that went down.
on Sunday, 8th
Let me tell you how
March.
this goes, yeah? So you go to an interview, you get a job in the government, you know, in the Ministry of Health, one of the biggest ministries across the country, and you become a PS. That's medical services, isn't it? So a couple of years or months later, you tell your village mates and your friends, you know what, I'm going to say, thank you, God, that I got that job, all right? So you go to a primary school and you invite your village mates. If you can make it, sema bwana kuna ng'ombe zimechinjwa huko bwana, twende tukule. And you invite the president as well, then a couple of cabinet secretaries, and then you say, whew, thank you, God. Homecoming. No, it's not like you're going home, only that this time around you're telling people, come home, I'm the PS. It doesn't make sense to me. It will make sense to any other person. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to me. Because the only way that you can do a homecoming is if the people of your area feel the impact, not even the area, because the PS is government worker. Ukienda nyumbani useme hata mimi nafaa nifanye homecoming. Should organize a homecoming one of these fine days. So that it starts making sense to me. All right, this is Honorable Japheth Ouma who's saying, hey everyone, I got the job. Time to pop the champagne at Okela Primary School. PS Health and CI residents cannot see an impact from you. That's what he's saying. Would Rarieda, I'm happy, but injections are PR. As ward Rarieda. I don't know what it means in law. I would have translated ward Rarieda. Right? Good. Willis, Okwacho, who's saying, Dr. Umaluga, is that a, no, let me just read not this. Let me just see the guys who are reacting to this. This is Sylvia Ayiso, who's saying, oh yes, indeed, God is faithful. I celebrate you this day, my PS. May the Lord give you more wisdom and guidance as you continue serving the nation and leading us in ensuring transformative health services in the country. All right? Datfish, who's saying, I thought it was a free medical camp. So, doleful doctor, it is Thanksgiving. I hope Siaya County Hospital has enough medicine and doctors. Odera Geoffrey saying, congratulations, PS. We are proud of you. Jahoma. All right, congratulations on your great work, Doc. May God continue to guide and lead you as you lead. All the best. I mean, Kenyans are talking about it this morning, and the president was actually in attendance. That's the only reason as well we're talking about it this morning. Now let's cross over to Nairobi politics. Esther Passaris was addressing a church gathering in Kamukunji. She's actually campaigning after residents made it clear that they didn't want to hear anything about being told that ODM was left in the broad-based government, and so they need to be there post-2027. Let's take a look and see how that went down.
Ndio maana tunasimama na William Samoei Ruto. Na mimi kile nataka kuambia tutaba sio sawa. Sasa kwa sababu pale baba alituacha atatafuti sawa. Sasa kwa sababu baba alituacha ndani ya broad base, sisi tunatafuta vile ile jinsi tutaweza kufanya na William Samoei Ruto ili sisi sote tuangalie majamii. Ile kitu nataka kusema, tafadhali wamama tuwe wapole, kwa sababu wamama lazima tuwe na jinsi ya kuzungumza pamoja. Sisi sote tumesema ni tuta, si ndio? Ni tuta, tunakubaliana hapo. Lakini ile kitu nataka kuambia hapa Nairobi, kutoka Friday sisi tulikuwa kwa Amurua tukizika mwenzetu ambaye aliaga. Tulipokuwa huko kulikuwa kuna floods hapa Nairobi. Watu kama 20 juu wamekufa. Kitu nataka tufanye, tusimame tafadhali.
Actually, that noise got louder. We don't have all that time this morning to show you exactly how it went. And for those who watched, the mic was finally taken away from her because the audience just didn't want to listen to her. Ayu kiongea mbele watu, bwana sisi kama ODM tumesema mambo ni tuta. Wakatai, I mean, wajoin tu kidogo hivi bwana. Huwezi endelea, hawaja kusikiza. Even those no wanted to listen to you, I haven't heard you at all. Madam Esther Passaris, it was really tough for you. this weekend at Kamukunji. But it is what it is, man. I mean, you got a campaign, isn't it? You can't stop. All right, let me just read a couple of your reactions here. This is Emperor, Kushner, who's saying something called emotional intelligence. You want to be a member of parliament, first attempt, watu wamekataa ujinga yako ya 2 term. Anyone with a brain, utakanyagia hiyo puzi na ujiombee kura. Sielewi nini mbaya na hiyo dia vya Uburu. Watu wako focused on 2 term kuliko survival yao wenyewe. This is the Emperor who's saying all this morning. I'll continue reading. So you're telling me, actually, we did observe that video. There are a couple of Muslim ladies who were in church today. Let me not believe that, but she spoke without thinking. This is Lucky Sherry who's saying that. Ground has completely shifted, pushing the 2-term agenda, or the so-called broad-based 10-point plan is now a fool's errand. It's like trying to sell pork in a mosque. This is Shina Lloyd. Finally then, this is March 25, who says she didn't even know how the mic escaped from her hand. It was taken away, bwana. All right? Finally, Vidan Lashan was saying, learn quickly how to read the mood of your audience and avoid forcing your opinion to them. You're embarrassing yourself. Good. Let's look at the last trending issue this morning, which is how President Dr. William RUTO was received in Siaya. With pomp and color. We're just going to look at that, and then I will tell you exactly what he was doing there before we take a tiny break. All right, there are just a couple of things that took the president to that region, and I'll be telling you exactly what that was. 2 events that really happened in Siaya. Number 1, President RUTO joined the hometown tribute to Health PS Oluga. That's 1. Number 2 as well, he was in Siaya County as well, where Orengo accused him of arresting staff before his visit. And number 3, he also spoke to the youth and told them, do not be exploited, all right, amid protest backlash. So I'll give you just a couple of issues that are a couple of responses, all right. Robert Alai this morning was saying, James Orengo tweeted this, and I'll read it in full. This evening, several members of my staff have been arbitrarily arrested and detained in Siaya, and will be in connection with a presidential visit to Siaya tomorrow. This egregious conduct shown on the part of the police has no place in the constitutional democracy. I demand their immediate release. This is James Orengo was tweeting this. Robert Alai comes and says, arrested because, led by your PA, they were paying people to go heckle the president. That's the response here. All right. During his visit, he opened the Siaya Digital Hub, where Governor Orengo heard about the trip and cooked a crisis by faking arrest of his staff. Nobody arrested them. That is according to Abuga Makuri. Now, that's exactly what you are waking up to this morning. In as regards your trends are concerned, we take a tiny breather. Once we come back, let's look at a couple of issues this morning, going by the president asking for 17 billion for his office to operate. Once we come back, we talk about that.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati
tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
I recall the doctor telling me that day, he said, Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but you see, life happens. You would have to learn to work with your hands, depend on your hands more.
And today, if you're going through anything that you do not understand, just call on this name, Jesus, and he will save you.
I realized I loved music when I was about 7 or 8. I used to puff my cheeks and play the 12-bar blues. Like I'd walk around the house doing like...
Why do we need the Holy Spirit?
I mean, if you look at what Jesus said when he was leaving, he said he is going and that he will send the Holy Spirit as our helper.
So God knows everything since the end, from the beginning, has a plan for your life. So to find that plan for your life, you must find God. When you find God, you will know the path for your life.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
I recall the doctor telling me that day, he said, Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but you see, life happens. You would have to learn to work with your hands, depend on your hands more.
And today, if you're going through anything that you do not understand, just call on this name, Jesus, and he will save you.
I realized I loved music when I was about 7 or 8. I used to puff my cheeks and play the 12-bar blues. Like I'd walk around the house doing like...
Why do we need the Holy Spirit?
I mean, if you look at what Jesus said when he was leaving, he said he is going and that he will send the Holy Spirit as our helper.
So God knows everything since the end, from the beginning, has a plan for your life. So to find that plan for your life, you must find God. When you find God, you will know the path for your life.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
What is this? All right, welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. It's a good thing that in case you're just joining us, we are talking about the state of the nation. But even before we get into our conversation this morning, I would like then to go back to the Daily Nation, Director, if you can, because I would like our guests just to weigh in on some of the issues that have been covered on the Daily Nation. The Daily Nation has a headline here this morning that is talking about flood warnings. The death toll has gone to 42. But there's something here they're talking about that there's a report that was released in 2024 that exposed systemic weaknesses, including ignored early warnings from the Kenya Meteorological Department. The report recommended measures to improve the state's emergency response, but as it gathers dust, disaster struck again 2 years later with tragic consequences. A story that has been covered on page 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let me then take this time to introduce the guests who are joining us this morning. We're going to have this conversation with Augustine Omondi, who's a political analyst. Also joining us this morning, we do have Alfred Mumbo, who's the president, Kenya Young Turks. Mr. Mumbo.
Yes.
That the Auditor General had given us a report in 2024 after another disaster of the same measure and said that this is what the country and the city needs to do just to get ready in case we have another floods issue in the country. But guess what? We did absolutely nothing. We sat back. And now we've lost 42 and counting because the rains, according to the Met Department, are still going on into the course of next week. Should somebody be accountable?
Yes, there must be somebody who should be accountable for the same. And I think nobody has been able to take it serious. Because if you check, there is even funds set aside for the same in the budget. But who cares about the same? Is it me and you who should be accounting for the funds? There must be somebody accountable for the funds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nairobi especially has received the heaviest brand of this downpour. I mean, you and I are residents of Nairobi. Do you ever feel that Nairobi is making progress when it comes to solving its issues drainage-wise? Because that's exactly what I've seen, massive loss of lives and property within the city over the past couple of days, especially from Thursday up to where we are right now.
Okay, to me what I would say, Simba, I think nobody has been able to come out clearly on how Nairobi should be structured in terms of development and even dealing with some of the issues that are within the city. And that is where the problem starts from. Nairobi as a county has 17 constituencies. That's where we need to be able to begin from before we even get into the governor.
Yes.
And you see, there are many funds being used within the county. Like, let's say, for example, the question we need to be able to ask ourselves, Simba, is that how much are we collecting as revenue within Nairobi in a single day? That should be the question.
That's it.
And you see, even in the national kitty, the money that Nairobi is receiving from the national government, like for the previous 3 years, how much have we received as a county? How much roughly have we received as a county?
Mm-hmm.
It's more than 160 billion. What has it been able to do for us? That should be the question.
Mm-hmm.
That is not inclusive of the revenue that you are actually collecting on a daily basis. So I think Nairobi is where corruption is manufactured.
Yes.
Starting with the governor and the leadership within the county, that is where the problem, and that's where the rain started beating us.
Yes.
Because there are many things we can be able to dwell into as a people, and especially in the leadership of the county, just to be able to make sure that we are on the right traction.
Yes.
But you see, if you check, you will find that if the governor doesn't really understand what should be done to the county, to the drainage within the county, then how do you expect for me as a common mwananchi to be able to explain to you? Because he needs to be able to know each and every corner of the county, understanding each and every other section where there are problems. Like for me, I don't believe that as a leader I will wait until there are problems, because when we elect people, we need to be able to they need to be able to understand that we are electing them because of a specific cause. Simba, these leaders are not new. These leaders have not come from heaven. They are not from other countries. We have elected them as per the manifesto they actually gave us, whatever they sold to us. So like, let's say, for example, when you're electing somebody like a governor, only to come to the leadership and he doesn't really understand what it takes by his roles, including such kind of things like, let's say, for instance, managing drainage of the city. A governor sitting down on a national television, not able to explain what it takes by actually managing such kind of a disaster. Then, do you expect for me as Mumbo, just a common mwananchi, to understand that? It would be very difficult. So these leaders have not come from heaven, they have not come from other countries. These are the people we elected to be able to give us solutions of the problems we are having. Like, out of the whole country, in a population of more than 50 million people, we only have 47 counties. Those are 47 governors. The governors will need to be able to give us a solution of how the country should be running in terms of devolution. Somebody who is not even able to be able to come up with a solution on what should be taking place in the city in terms of managing drainage, then that means we have a very big problem in terms of the leadership and the leaders we elected as our people.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let me just pick your 2 cents on this just before we get into our main discussion this morning as well. For Nairobi specifically, there have been these claims that for every leader who comes in and says, well, our drainage problems haven't started with me. I mean, the previous governor said the same thing. Sakaja as well is saying the same thing, that our drainage issues haven't just started within my administration. Should that be an incompetence statement from every other governor then who takes over Nairobi? Because at least we should be able to see some progress. Have we seen it? Should we take Sakaja to the book and say, well, that's incompetence, because what have you done specifically, your part? Because I did done little, and then the previous governor did little, then we will be seeing a bit of progress within the city. But every other governor comes in and says, this issue hasn't started with me. I'm trying to solve it.
Okay, I understand that the issue hasn't started with him as a leader. That is very much okay. But you see, we didn't elect him to be able to deal with some of the problems that are actually new. We knew some of the problems that we had, and that's why even for me, I voted for him. I didn't really expect him to start giving us some lame excuses like the one he's actually giving. There have been problems, yes, and we know that. Me and you know that there have been problems in the city. But you see, how do you hold accountable to the governor who was in 2013 on the same mistakes that are actually in 2026? You see, Simba, I think leaders are running away from their mandate, giving lame excuses to the people who actually voted them in the office. Like, how do you tell the common mwananchi who elected you to the office that this problem hasn't started with me? Even for the president today, not even the governor alone. Like, we elected you to be able to deal with some of the problems that are in the country. We believed in your manifesto, we believed in whatever you sold to us. So we are not looking at the previous leader. The previous leader did whatever they could be able to do, and they're no longer in office right now. We elected you because we believed in your capabilities as a leader to be able to deal with whatever is actually taking place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Just what we just want to wait and see whether indeed we're going to have solutions. And that report that the Auditor General gave the government on exactly what we were supposed to do to respond to some of these disasters in the country, like the Daily Nation says it has been gathering dust. In that time, we've already lost 42 people in this recent deluge. And the Met Department says we are not done yet. The rains are going to keep on belting the country for the next couple of days. So the question is, are we going to see more lives lost in this conversation? Hopefully not. All right, let's then cross over to our discussion this morning. And news emerging from the latest supplementary budget shows that State House expenditure has effectively now doubled within the current financial year. The Office of the President was initially allocated 8.58 billion shillings for the 2025-2026 financial year, but Parliamentary approved an additional 8.43 billion through a supplementary budget, pushing the total allocation to roughly 17 billion shillings. Now, Treasury data shows that spending had already exceeded the original full-year budget months before the fiscal year closed. By January 2026, State House had spent about 10.4 billion shillings against an approved 7.7 billion, meaning the office had already exhausted more than 100% of its annual recurrent allocation, with months still remaining in the financial year. Before we look at history, let's just talk about this particular fact. Here we are. The Office of the President was initially allocated 8.58 billion shillings for the 2025-2026 financial year, but the Parliament approved an additional 8.43 billion through a supplementary budget. Now, it doesn't end there. Now, that has pushed the expenditure to roughly 17 billion shillings. But it also shows that State House had already spent 10.4 billion shillings against an approved 7.7 billion, meaning that the office had already exhausted more than 100% of its annual recurrent allocation, with months still remaining in the financial year. So, Mumbo, here's what it is. State House was given 8.58 billion, and they were told this is the amount of money that you have to spend. We're going to look at exactly what the previous presidents have been spending. But then they came back and went to Parliament and said, we need more money. Parliament then proceeded to approve an additional 8.43 billion through a supplementary budget. This already pushed the total allocation to 17 billion shillings. But it doesn't stop there. It also shows that by the time they're going back to Parliament, they'd already spent the entire money. They're already at 10.4 billion shillings against an approved allocation of 7.7 billion, meaning they had already eaten into their complete budget for the year and went beyond it by the time they're going to Parliament to ask for these monies to be approved. This at a time when every government official you speak to tells you there is no money, that we gotta live by our means. We're not gonna keep on borrowing more money. We don't have money to spend. Looks as if the top office is on a spending spree. Can you look at those numbers and then you tell us exactly what's going on, Mumbo?
Yeah, Simba, to me, just like I told you earlier, the leaders we elected in office didn't come from elsewhere. These are the people that just came from amongst ourselves. They know exactly what, as a country, what as a people we are ailing from.
Yes.
And I think they have been able to take advantage of everything. And you see where the rain started beating us, Simba, is that these are the people who have capitalized on a lot, especially in terms of the vulnerability of mwananchi.
Yes.
Because if you check very well, there are many meetings taking place in the State House. That is where trouble starts from. Look at the travel. Look at the president on top of the car promising projects here and there. That is where actually this money is being spent. And you see these projects actually, I can say it's budgeted corruption. Because you see, if you can give me 1,000 shillings and I spend 2,000 shillings that I don't have, then budgeted corruption. They told us when they go to the office that was the kitty had completely nothing. That's something that they need to be able to go back to and tell us that we got the kitty with no money, but I think we've been able to collect this and we are at this level. And you see, what needs to be able to worry us more is that they're actually spending outside the budget.
Yes.
And you see, even for the same, if you look at the control of the budget, every other time brings up reports of how expenditures are being done, how projects are being run, and even the State House, like the money that you've just been able to mention here, not 2 shillings, not 2 cents. It's some of the things that majority of the times I will be able to say that we don't have somebody to be able to talk about it. Where money is being actually approved, that is where the problem is. It's in the National Assembly. Who approved this money? Why and how? Yes. Like if you are to give me 10,000 shillings to be able to use in a month, why give me 20,000? That should be the question. So the biggest trouble, like I've always said on these benches, is that we have the trouble with the people elected in the National Assembly. In terms of representation, they are not doing their work. In terms of legislation, they are not actually doing their work. So that's why you find, like, let's say, for example, wherever these monies are actually being approved, that is where trouble starts from.
Yes.
If Parliament never approved this money, then do you tell me that it would be spent? It will not be spent. If they would say no and take it back and say, no, we are not approving this because of 1, 2, 3, or rather ABCD, we would not be here as a country. But the members of Parliament we elected, that is where the problem is. And every other time I sit on these benches, I say that Parliament has been captured. Now that's why you see these monies being spent, because they know very well they're also getting something out of the same. We don't know. Because you see, the approval of this money goes through their house. The house, they need to be able to say, no, this money is not being approved because of ABCD. Look at the majority side, singing the hymns of the president every other time, and that is where the rain started beating us.
That's it.
So even these numbers that you mentioned, they'll go higher, even in the next year.
Yes.
I don't think if the next president who will come in the office will be able to find any coffers, anything in the coffers that is. There will be totally nothing. Yes. Even the coffers itself will not be into existence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I'm going to take you back again so that we see how these monies are getting approved. Because when we started the year, and I want to remind you back to I want to take you back to the 2024 Gen Z protests, when we went to the street and said the government is spending money how they're not supposed to spend it. They're using it on projects that are useless across the country. They even said some of the offices that you guys have in that office, like the office of the First Lady, should be taken out, that we don't need it. Good. Upon that, they were allocated 8.58 billion shillings. They said that this is actually enough. And everybody who sat there said, well, this is the amount of money that we need to use. We were okay with it. Everybody sat and said, this is what we need to use. Then Mumbo, how is it that now Parliament is approving an extra 8.43 billion through a supplementary budget? Is somebody somewhere seated saying, we know what has been approved, but that was just for show. What we want is for you to give us an extra 8.43 billion. It's somebody communicating directly to Parliament and telling them, well, you got to go beyond what has been approved. But even when you go beyond what has been approved, Mumbo, there are those figures that you can say, okay, that we do understand. If you and I were seated here this morning saying, well, they approved an extra 100 million, then it will be understandable. But how is it that you're doubling it? Is somebody communicating directly to them and telling them, I need more money?
They have created avenues to be able to need more money. And like I mentioned earlier, that is the budgetary corruption that we're actually talking about.
Yes.
I'll go back to something that we've mentioned about the Gen Z protests.
Yes.
These protests were actually brought about the finance bill of 2023-2024.
That's it.
And if you look at it, it was actually not really being understood. And you see the same people who voted yes in the same finance bill are the same people who are actually sitting in the same National Assembly, in the same Parliament, to pass some of the budgets that are actually here. Yes. The ones that are actually taking us to the 17 billion that we're talking about. So if you look at the same, Simba, and you see my worry is just one, that this time round there is no Baba. And if these protests start, I don't know who is going to be able to cool them down.
That's it.
Maybe they have a way to deal with the same. This time around, I don't know who will be able to cool them down. Because if you check, like the president actually called for a press conference, talked about scrapping off some of the offices of the First Lady's office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary's First Lady and all that kind of. But you see, these are offices that are actually operating chini ya maji. They are still into existence. Because if you look at the expenditures and all that kind of, these things, you will find that they're still into existence, only that me and you cannot be able to know. The common man in Turkana can't really know that this office has been financed.
Yes.
But at the same time, you see, for the supplementary budgets, like you're saying, the biggest trouble, like I mentioned earlier, comes in when the people approving this money are also part of the game. They are part of the game because they are the people who need to be able to, they are people who put a stamp on it Because if this money is not put a stamp on it, there's nobody will be able to receive it. There's no, the supplementary budget will not be able to come out.
Yes.
And you see, Simba, let's say, for instance, we're talking about 8.5 billion, the allocated budget for the office of the president. That is the high office on the land. Another supplementary budget that is actually being requested and approved of more than 8.4 billion. This totaling to 17 billion.
That's it.
You see, if you told us that maybe there is 200 million that is actually needed extra on this, it would be understandable maybe some of the things that do happen within the office of the president. That is understandable. But taking it back, taking it to double up the whole sum of amount, I don't think it makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's a good thing that we don't have Augustine Monday in the studio this morning. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
Let me take you back to where we are in this conversation. We're just looking at the numbers that are coming from the top house in the country, that is State House. The 8.58 billion was the amount of money that was approved for them to spend in 2025-2026 financial year. We do know that we have 3 months for that particular year to end. But as it stands, they're already done with their money. The 800% plus of that money. They went back and Parliament approved an additional 8.43 billion through a supplementary budget. That is essentially pushing the total allocation to 17 billion shillings already. Guess what? We're not done with this here. So it might be more as well, because what we do know, by the time Parliament was approving this money, they had already spent more than 100% of their budget. Augustine, I want to start you off on this one. I've got this quote here from one Samson Oyo this morning, and then he says this. Good. Towards the end of last year, I sat and watched teachers being invited to State House, members of the UDA party being invited to State House, and then I learned that each teacher was walking away with 10,000 shillings. That is, minus food and other logistics, roughly bringing us to 100 million shillings in just one event. Then he says, I counted how many such kind of events from youth economic empowerment programs that are not part of the mandate for State House, that were held at State House. Said, I counted 11 last year. So he says, on average, if each event cost 100 million shillings, we are talking about 1.1 billion on the bounce. So he goes to say, so where do you expect this money to come from? It is your money that is being used for the president to campaign. Goes on to say, indeed, if we look at majority of his expenditure, we can say is using public money for campaigns. That's why we are talking about billions that are being spent at State House without proper accountability. Do you agree with Samson?
Thank you. You see, that is a common mwananchi raising his real concerns towards real issues that are happening in a country. For a president, they voted in who promised them otherwise. Because if you look at in the manifesto of UDA, one of the things that they were, because by that time there was a lot of complaints about international trips, that the president was rarely, now that's the former president, that he was rarely here. So he was used to go to things that he is not even supposed to go to. And see, Kenyans said, this is too much for us as a taxpayer. And you realize that by that time, that's when now we hit the highest of around State House budget of around 7.1 billion.
Yes, it was actually 7 billion.
Yes, 7 billion.
Yes.
And that is the time that people are complaining that the Mr. President, kindly sit down and work. You are having a lot of trips, foreign trips. And one of the campaign tools for the current president was that when you guys vote me in and I become the president, I'll cut these unnecessary travels outside the country to ensure that the budget comes down. I can't spend 7 billion in a State House as a single person. Those were some of the promises he made. So Kenyans are very shocked that immediately he assumes the office, he forgets. You see, it's very unfortunate that a State House has spent 100% of the budgetary allocation and even gone high and spent 3 billion extra of the taxpayers' money. And you ask yourself, what happened? Is the president planning these meetings? Who are these people that are planning these meetings at State House? Because the functions of the State House is not to do such meetings. Will you tell me what business do the president has with the teachers to have a meeting at the State House, whereas we have Teacher Service Commission to deal with their issues? Which deal are they going to sign at State House? Which business? Because you see, that is completely another administrative function that has its own sector, that has a union that manages and a section that manages teachers. So you wonder, what are they going to do to State House? Which business? Even if it is votes, the time for voting is not yet here for the president to try and call teachers come together. And you see, they are paid. This, what they are being paid, is aside of their salaries, is aside of what they are in a contractual obligation with the people of Kenya. So, so some of these meetings that we are having in State House, as much as the president has cut down the international travels, he should reduce local traveling. Because if the president today was moving all over the country, today he's in Meru, tomorrow he's in... Yesterday I realized that since he came to power, the president has been in Nyanza almost more than 12 times. You wonder, what is he doing there? And if you go to some parts of Nyanza, they are not even power. The roads are very pathetic. So you wonder, what has he been coming to do in one area for more than 12 times? And you see, anytime the president visits an area, almost 100 million drops. So you find that these all other trips, 100 million drops, 100 million drops, 100 million drops. And you wonder, at what time is this president doing this work? Why don't we direct this money to do this project, so that even if the president has to go, for example, to some of these regions, he goes once, but mostly he sends the CSS that are in those particular departments. For example, for road, if they want to open a road that was built, we don't need a president to go there and open it. Number two, how can we have a State House as a meeting point for everyone that is moving out? Because now it means that the president, instead of working, trying to see how he can bring, he's so focused on his 2027 bid, and the meetings that he has in State House that are more highly are political meetings. They are not for the benefit of common Mwananchi, because when we are having such meetings in State House and we are spending over 100 million per day, and these Kenyans are looking for these very small basic needs that we are crying for every day, day in, day out. At what point are we saying that this money is beneficial to this common Mwananchi who voted for this president? What we'll advise the president at this time is that let's stop these unnecessary meetings at the State House. Let people be met at their departmentals. For example, we have ministries who deals with issues. There are things that I don't understand. What business do the president have to call the clergies to go to meet him in State House, and almost over 10,000? Which business? Does he want to become a bishop? But he's the president of this country. Let the bishops do their job. For what business do the president has to call county assembly representatives to meet him at State House? Some of them he calls even without even the governor of that area. You see, remember, county assembly members, those are the devolution issues. They already have their president, who is the governor. Which business do the president has with them that needs to call them for a meeting at State House? Which business do the president has down there that he can't do it through the governor, because already governor has an allocation? So if we were to have this kind of a situation whereby the president will wake up today and call for me MCS for Machakos, the MCS will come. The governor from Machakos will not come. Call for me the MCS from Siaya, the governor from Siaya will not come. You wonder, at what capacity is the president calling these county assembly members that has a government that is running through the governor at the county level? And why are we spending on them? Because you find an MCA will not give him 10,000 when he comes to State House. No. The amount must be high. In fact, maybe go to $1 million for each MCS so that they can come. Which business does he have with the MCS? Why don't he communicate these things through there? And if he wants to address them, why don't he go to these counties? These counties have county assemblies, so that he can address them from there, so that we reduce these unnecessary. Because if an MCA was coming to Nairobi here for State House, that's a trip for almost 3 days. There is accommodation, there is food, there is allowance, and you wonder, what business do the president has with them? So the president, if it is not him that is organizing all these unnecessary meetings at State House, then he should cut down on all these unnecessary meetings.
That's it.
Number two, we saw the other day that they are doing, renovation is very good, renovation is very good, but now you see we can't be having in every budget 1.2 billion we are renovating State House. That is not possible.
That's it. Austin, I was actually going to come on that point for innovation, because the point is there that we have to look at. Let me cross over to you, Mumbo. It's a good thing that now Mr. Mundi's jumped right into the conversation. I'll take you back to what is allowing the president then within law to do all we're doing right now. But just before we get there, let me take you back historically to what the political class in this country agree that was the best performing president when it came to economic development of this country. That was President Mwai Kibaki. Let's see how much he was spending annually at State House. State House spending has averaged about 4 billion shillings annually as government maintained a relatively smaller executive office. President Uhuru Kenyatta, his allocation rose significantly, reaching roughly 6.5 billion. That this was the biggest one for President Uhuru Kenyatta. And that was between 2017 and 2018 financial year. And later, it went up to 7.2 billion as the government expanded executive operations and security functions. So we weren't still at double digits. We're still at single digits in terms of the billions that the government was spending. Now, if you go back to Mwai Kibaki's government, you will see that the highest amount that he spent was 4.5 billion shillings. That is the State House expenditure as the biggest on record. Now, let's go back and see exactly what is making President William Ruto draw more money. And this is under Article 223 of the Constitution. The executive can draw money from the consolidated fund before the approval by Parliament. So the only thing the Parliament does is go in and approve that, yes, the President and State House withdrew this money from the consolidated fund, and this is exactly what the monies were used for. And they only approve it under emergency circumstances. That they cannot approve it before, but they don't have to. But in the case of emergency circumstances, then Parliament can come in and approve this amount of money. All right? Just let me give you one instance. In one instance now, 3.6 billion shillings was released within a 42-day period to address funding shortfalls in travel and operational expenses linked to the president's activities. So within 42 days, the president spent 3.6 billion shillings. Mr. Mumbo, do you think that this is absurd, that the State House can spend 3.6 billion shillings in a period of less than 2 months? And do you think it's time for us to go back and change that law and say, well, the amount of money you've been given is what you have to stick to unless there is an emergency? So we go back and change the constitution and say, this is what we call an emergency in as regards our expenditure. Because 4.5 billion to 17 billion shillings and counting is just too much to fathom.
Okay, Simba, allow me say something here. You see, for me, if I was to sit down and maybe talk about recommendations of our State House, I would rather recommend our State House that had a bar and used to spend 7 billion than a State House that has a church and is actually spending 17 billion. And yes, the common man is actually not really getting the value for these State House expenditures. So my brother has mentioned something here, and you see, as a country, we should be worried, because if everybody has to go to the State House to be able to hold meetings with the president, or rather hold the meetings with the high office, then that is one of the biggest problems we are facing, because you see, these are teachers, you mentioned the MCAs, the regional leaders, the church leaders, the youth leaders, and almost everybody. Almost everybody will be in the State House. And that is, you see, Simba, yes, that is where actually our budgets are actually really being exaggerated in a manner that cannot be explained. And you see the taxpayers' money for this case, if you check, like you've been able to mention about from Kibaki's government to the current government, like we've been able to, I understand there is that transition of time in terms of how things are flowing. You can't be able to expect that how things were in the previous 10 years.
That's it.
It's the same how things are in the 10 years later.
That's it.
But again, you see, Simba, you can't tell me that you're spending from 4.5 billion highest in the previous 15 years up to now, when we are spending actually 17 billion. What changed? That's why you see me recommending the state house that are at the bar, more of the state house that actually as a church. Those are some of the things we need to be able to put our leaders to task, of course, in terms of how things are running. And there's something you've mentioned about the clause that actually gives the presidency, or rather the higher office on land, to be able to use money. Then they approve it after it's already been used. Like you see, if I had 10,000 shillings in my pocket right now, and there's a family kitty that has our 50 million, and the family mandate, or rather the family policies, allows me to be able to go use the money before it's even approved by the family. That is where the trouble starts from. And you see, such kind of clauses is where we need to be able to call for the change of the constitution, amendment of the constitution. You see, the problem that we've had as a country, nobody is calling for the change of, rather, the amendment of the constitution in such kind of matters.
Yes.
They only call for the amendment of the constitution when we want to extend the presidential limit, term limit, that is.
Yes.
And that is where the problem is. You see, when you tell me that you want to change the presidential term limit, I look at you as somebody who doesn't really understand some of the problems we're going through as a country, as a people. But if you told me that this clause has a problem, that the president will be able to spend money before it's approved, then we'll be able to agree with you that we need to be able to change this constitution and see what to do about it. So generally, Simba, on this, I think on the supplementary budget and the other things that we're actually talking about here, and everything in terms of the expenditure of the higher office on the land, there is trouble. And this trouble, I think that is where everything is bringing us into a mess.
Yes.
Because that is why you'll see the president, like my brother has been able to mention here, visiting one region, doing ABCD, doing 1, 2, 3 on top of the cars. And that is where the problem, last time I was here, I told you one thing. Some of the projects that I've been able to stall, it's because of the president coming here and telling you kwamba hii barabara kutokea hapa mpaka pale inafaa kuwa inatengenezwa, which is okay. But with which money? You find, like, let's say, for example, I was somewhere in Kajiado where there is a railway that was being launched. I didn't know that this project would be removed immediately after I visited the place after some time. That railway is not into existence. And you see there's money that has been allocated to this project.
Yes.
The project has not even started up to now. So that is where the problem is as a country. And if we're not really looking into it as early as yesterday, I think we're falling into much trouble.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Guess what? Once we come back from this tiny breather, Mr. Monde, you'll be responding to this. It looks as if that in this country, the State House will never do wrong, because you can spend more than your allocated budget, and then later you seek approval for the amount of money that you spent away from your allocated budget. It's the only state department that has that autonomy to spend as so. It's the only state department that doesn't complain about how they have less budgets. Once we come back, I'll be showing you how the State House says that they spent over 1 million shillings per day in printing of State House material. The 3.6 billion shillings that has been used in just a matter of 42 days, and also how the State House spent 817 shillings annually on printing services alone, translating, actually I was wrong, to 2.2 million shillings per day on official documents, policy briefs and directives sent to ministries and government agencies. Is it time for us to relook State House expenditure? And the only people who can allow us to do that is Parliament. But why can't they do it? Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift, still with Austin and Mr. Mumbo. Good morning.
For you to forgive someone who has hurt you? How easy is it? What are some tips, a person can apply to improve their public speaking skills?
We all have personality lazy somewhere around us.
In my mind, whenever I'm invited for a public speaking event, I don't like to put a lot of, accessories or too many colors.
What are the major things to look out when choosing a school for a child?
Another cheesy conversation starter is, men do this a lot. Men look familiar. Have we met before? No. We met in Nobody's buying that line again. No, we don't. We don't buy it anymore.
Do you need a dose of hope? If so, you are in the right place. We think of ourselves around here as hope dealers, delivering truth, power, and inspiration to hearts and minds all over the world. If nothing else has worked for you, why not give the God thing a try? For it's in the presence of God that you'll find everything that you need. Amen.
I recall the doctor telling me that day, he said, Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but you see, life happens. You would have to learn to work with your hands, depend on your hands more.
And today, if you're going through anything that you do not understand, just call on this name, Jesus, and he will save you.
I realized I love music when I was about 7 or 8. I used to puff my cheeks and play the 12-bar blues. Like I'd walk around the house doing like.
Why do we need the Holy Spirit?
I mean, if you look at what Jesus said when he was leaving, he said he is going and that he will send the Holy Spirit as our helper.
So God knows everything since the end, from the beginning, has a plan for your life. So to find that plan for your life, you must find God. When you find God, you will know the path for your life.
Here's the thing then, it is 2.2 million shillings per day on our printing, State House material and official documents, policy briefs. That translates to 817 million shillings annually on printing services alone. It's 3.6 billion shillings that was spent in less than 2 months on just the president's logistics and travel plans, by the way, within the country, not outside of the country. Now, if you look at some of the Gen Z-led protests that took place in the country in 2024, President William RUTO publicly pledged to reduce government spending and streamline operations within the executive. Some measures included reviewing travel budgets, cutting back on certain government advisory positions, and attempting to rationalize expenditure across the ministries. However, the Budget Implementation Committee has continued to show to Kenyans that expenditure since the president took over office have continued to rise. Omori, just before we went on break, I was telling you, it looks as if State House is the only department in this country that doesn't feel the economic brunt that the same government keeps on preaching. Because if you can double your budget, spend your budget more than twice what it's supposed to be, your country must be doing so well that the only thing you're doing is just going to the consolidated fund and drawing in money. Why can't they come out and tell us the truth then, that the country is performing so well?
But first of all, you see, the State House can't run out of funds. That is one of the organs of this government that should be in funds always, because president is a symbol of national unity. It will be very unfortunate that the president was not able to move from point A to point B because there was no fuel. It will be very unfortunate that president was not able to do ABCD because of their financial issues.
But again, also, do you think that if they came in and said that the president is not able to go to Siaya tomorrow because we've already spent our budget, wait until June, won't that be good news for the country?
No, you see, it is the people. You see now, for example, if the president was to go to Siaya today, the people in Siaya expect a lot of goodies from the president.
Yes.
Like the president will be coming around, we expect this one to be done, we expect this one to be done, we expect this one to be done. And some of these things that they expect the president to do are technically county responsibilities. And you find that the president goes even ahead and launches this project that was supposed to be launched by counties. And you wonder what as much as the State House cannot run out of funds, the president should work on the expenditure. The president and the team cannot overspend beyond what was allocated to them by Kenyans. As much as they are the only organ that is not subject to, in terms of scrutiny, in terms of what they spend, they can spend and come and claim later. The parliament should come out very strong and know that the people of Kenya voted them to ensure that they align issues, because it is only the parliament that can try and align the State House with respect to expenditure and approvals of these funds.
Yes.
So the parliament should stop, because now you see the way the parliament is that a very good number of parliamentarians are aligned to the government. So when the president says that, or even when the budget State House controller says that we don't have funds, immediately they go and approve. They rather fail to approve the money for the floods. They rather fail to approve the money for school. They rather pay to approve the money for doctors, but will immediately rush and approve the money for state out expenditure. So it is the MPs that we elected that are failing us at the parliament, because immediately they approve, the expenditure continues. If they say that we will not approve, definitely the government will look for another, even these consolidated funds. We want the accountability of these consolidated funds, we know that. Because the Constitution says under emergency, what was this emergency that made them withdraw 3 billion? We want to know. The government should come out and even tell us that we withdrew 3 billion from a consolidated fund through emergency ABCD. Traveling is not an emergency. Normal expenditure is not an emergency. You find that in this report that the government used almost 900 and I think and 30 something to buy cars. That is almost $1 billion.
Yes.
$1 billion shillings.
Yes.
What are we talking about? Printing that they use almost to print. What are they printing per day that costs around 2.2 million? But the president should sit down with the people that manages the budget for the State House, and they know that this is the Kenyans' money, and it is the president that, because see, as Kenyans we will not go after the State House budget controller. We'll go after the president, because why are you allowing this to happen in State House? So it will force the president to sit down with his team and try to cut down the budget, so that a common mwananchi who is suffering, who is not able to afford food, who is sleeping hungry, will know that actually as much as sleeping hungry, the president has also cut down his expenditure at State House, so that the president is not just traveling anyhow, doing things anyhow, but for the things that are not for the sake of a common mwananchi who voted him in. Because this government is perceived to be a government for Mama Mboga na mutu wa boda boda. There is no way that they can double their expenditure against the people that they say that they were overspending. And I can't even remember the last time the president was at Harambee House. Can you remember the last time the president was at Harambee House? Can you remember the last time he was at Harambee House? Can you remember? It's very difficult, because that is where the president should be at the office. Meet people at the office, not people take tea at State House. Why has he moved all the operations State House? If the president can move to Harambee House, all this expenditure will come down, because people will come on appointment and the president will be dealing with very important issues. So that is one way of trying to reduce the expenditure. But now when the people, even you today, Simba, if you are called to go to State House, you don't expect to go State House and come out the same. You must be coming out smiling. Everyone is expect to come out of State House smiling. So if you are to be called at Harambee House, you know this is business. I'm going to the president's office. I'm not going to receive anything. I'm going to present my problems, A, B, C, D, and the president will find a solution. So the president should work on the expenditure for the State House. The president should talk with the State House budget controller to avoid this unnecessary expenditure that Kenyans. And lastly, let the parliament do their job. We didn't vote them to worship the president. We voted them so that they can act on behalf of the people who voted them with their interest. There is no any other interest that supersedes the interest of the people who voted them in. And if they can't do that, they should remember that there is 2027 and we'll take them home very early in the morning.
Is it the problem of the parliament? And that's I wanted to highlight on this before I cross over to Mumbo this morning. Because if you look at this article 223 of the Kenyan Constitution, is there a feeling that it's okay for you to spend? Because it's sort of the framing of that article is that once you spend, the parliament is going to approve your expenditure as State House.
You see, that particular article shouldn't be misused, right? Because if today the president says that they have spent the 1 trillion, right? Will the parliament approve? So it means it's something that must have accountability. The constitution says on emergency, which emergency, they should be able to tell us that this is money that was approved, it was approved on emergency A, B, C, D.
Yes.
If it is not a money emergency, the parliament should not approve because the constitution says that it must be on an emergency. So which emergency? Traveling is not an emergency.
Yes.
Printing is not an emergency. Those are things that can be managed through other means. So that's why I'm telling you, the parliament is the one that is failing Kenyans.
Yes.
Because they are failing to execute their mandate as parliamentarians that were voted by Kenyans to ensure that they put the government on check on every day and on everything. And that's why the constitution talks about parliament. If it was that the constitution does not talk about parliament, then we can say that the State House can freely spend even 1 trillion and will bring to parliament. The reason why it's being brought to the parliament for approval, so that they can counter check and ask questions and get the justification on these budgets. It's not being brought to the parliament so that they can just say we have approved, no, so that they can go through, they know, was it really an emergency? So the president, not the president, the parliament should do their work,
yes,
the work that they were voted by the people of Kenya to do. That's simple.
Pretty much. All right, Mr. Mumbo, let me have you weigh in on this as well. And I'll read some of these numbers that have been pushed to us as well. Number one, we do know when the president assumed office that immediately they went into office, we already did see that 963 million shilling was spent on new vehicles and building refurbishment, while renovation projects alone have consumed more than 1.17 billion shillings over several phases of construction and redesign. That's the first one. Number two, in earlier budget reports also, at least 1.3 billion shillings had already been used on State House construction-related works, including refurbishment, non-residential buildings, and specialized equipment. All right? The biggest expenditure also to the tune of billions has been travel expenditure for the current State House. That they say, all these other things are not that much. What is eating mostly into the chunk of State House money is travel expenditure. Just like Mr. Modi saying this morning, that you can't pinpoint the last time we saw the president at Harambee House. And every time he goes out, be it on a weekday or a Sunday, he's always promising goodies to the churches that he's visiting. You and I can go back and pinpoint all his speeches. He's giving out 10 million, 5 million, 8 million, every other step that he goes. First question that I have for you then, do you think it's wrong that this report is out? Because then you, as a controller of budget and parliament, by allowing this report to be out, it's just showing Kenyans how, for lack of a better word, reckless you might be in allowing the expenditure of their money by the president. And number two, what do you say about those who are arguing for this expenditure? Let me put this across to you. I have Luca watching us this morning. Luca, how are you doing, sir? And he's saying, but all these expenditures are for the people of Kenya. He goes on to say, when the president donates money in charge, that's for the people of Kenya. When the president clears school fee for kids, that's for the people of Kenya. Even this weekend, and he says that we've seen when he went to burial ceremonies, he gave out millions. But then he says that is for the people of Kenya. So the monies are being spent in Kenya. Goes on to say, so what are we talking about? First question, do you think this report should be out, Mumbo?
Yeah, this report should be out almost every other time. And they should be able to come out, at least people get to be able to know what is being spent. I think, let me respond to, that was Luca?
Luca, yes.
I think that type of reasoning is the reason to us why we are wherever we are today. Because I don't expect such kind of reasoning that money will be, the taxpayers' money will be spent that way, then we say that it's been spent in the correct manner. Simba, what we need to be able to understand here, the software of leadership is integrity.
Yes.
And in the current government, I think President William Ruto should be the luckiest president to be able to live under in the current generation.
Yes.
Because Simba, you see, there is no proper accountability on the expenditure of the office of the president. That one can be told from some of the reports you've been able to read from your side. From the expenditure to everything, from whatever has been able to grow, from everything in terms of even printing and what have you. So if you check, I think the goodies that are being promised by the president every other time on the podiums and every other places he goes to, it's not because of anything. He has already understood that the Kenyans, that's whatever they want to be able to hear. Those are some of the things like Luka wants to be able to have. And you see, as a country, we can be able to do better in terms of whatever is actually taking place, in terms of the expenditure. If we had a sit down as a country and maybe relooked into some of the issues we are facing, like the president, like you've gone through that article, 223, right?
Yes.
It says that the president can be able to spend money and then it can be approved later.
Later on.
Who has now not said that this money cannot be spent on floods and be accounted later? Why are people dying in our city right now? He took over some of the functions within the city. He says that Nairobi it needs to be able to look like more of a county, which is okay. If you took 1 billion and spend on the floods within Nairobi and call it an emergency from the office of the president, even for me, I will not be here complaining. Nobody will sit down and complain over something of the sort. So, on the figures that you're mentioning are just more than crazy. And as a country, if you're not very careful, we will lead somewhere that it will not be easier for us to be able to come out. We'll lead into a ditch that it will not be easier for us to be able to come out.
Yes.
And the figures that we've just been able to bring out, I'll go back to something like, I've heard people talk about Singapore. What are the square kilometers of Singapore vis-a-vis Kenya as a country? Those are some of the questions we need to be able to look into. Getting to wherever we need to be able to get to in terms of development, it's much okay.
Yes.
That means that the president is actually very much ambitious. But again, we need to be able to look into how many square kilometers is Singapore vis-a-vis our country. In fact, Singapore, the square kilometers of Singapore compared to Nairobi, it's more of the same. It's actually, the difference is actually 92 square kilometers. Singapore is bigger than Nairobi, more than 92 square kilometers. So the president comparing Kenya to Singapore, that is, it is ridiculous to the people of Kenya.
Yes.
Which is actually being ambitious in terms of how Singapore has been maybe developed. But again, if you look at some of the things that are taking place within the constitution and the taxpayers' money and everything, I think our members of parliament should be able to sit down and maybe restructure on how things should be done in terms of how we are doing things.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Here's the other question that comes next, and I'll just read for you some of the responses that we're getting on this particular topic. I've got Senator Mongare Okongo, who's saying a republic cannot preach austerity to its citizens while enlarging the throne. When State House Nairobi doubles its purse to 17 billion shillings under William RUTO, Parliament must remember public finance is stewardship, not royal entitlement. I'll read for you another comment here. This is Saint Almetada, who's saying, we are tired of this nonsense. What is so special about State House? All right. Now, Mike, who goes on to break it for us this morning and says that is almost 47 million shillings per day. What exactly is this money used for? Would it be nice for the controller budget, that's what they're saying, to go down further and give us a breakdown of the accounts and how this money has been spent? Because in a nation like ours, with all the challenges we have, after corruption, it seems priorities is our next problem as a country. And let me go back to the conversation that we're having this morning and ask you this question. Do you think that it's in good taste that the controller budget, who, number one, has no control over how much money State House can spend, and it so looks as if Parliament too has no control of how much money State House can spend, goes ahead to release this report to the public? Is that not the controller budget saying, well, we got nothing to do? I mean, they've gone over and above their budget, and they've doubled their budget to 17 billion shillings for this year, and we can't do nothing about it.
Politically, this is not the best time to release such a budget. But democratically, that is the right thing to do, because Kenyans deserve to know.
Yes.
Kenyans deserve to know how much is being spent in State House.
Yes.
Kenyans, because it's Kenyans who voted in the president to go to State House. The president did not come from the moon or were not appointed by two people. No,
Yes.
it is Kenyans that voted the president through the ballot. They deserve to know how much they are spending. Maybe their president is sleeping angry. They want to know how much is the president comfortable, whether it is less, whether it is with doubles. So the budget controller, this is the best thing to do. Though this might cost very many people in that office by releasing that budget at such a time.
Yes.
But again, it is someone has done, for once, someone has done the right thing by telling us that this is how things look like. This is how the hustler president that you voted is spending at the State House. And you see, this should be a wake-up call to the State House budget controller. Cut down the expenditure of the State House, so
Yes.
that, because when all this is being done, they're exposing the president, because us as Kenyans will question the president. Why you? Why don't you stay put? Because, for example, you wonder, you see, previously, there was a claim that the former president was a drunkard, but he used to go to church. He used to go to church every Sunday. It was very rare for you to hear like, oh, I've given 100 million, I've given 10 million, I've given 20 million. And that was an unbeliever. People believe that he was an unbeliever, though he was a very staunch Catholic member. He used to go to church worship, then go back home. Is it not possible for the current president to adopt the same ways? Because anytime we see a president in a church, it's a donation activity. Anytime we see a president going to a church, is a contribution. And you see, even the clergy have now opened their stomachs for this State House money.
Yes.
They are not, the clergies are not doing their job, because the intention why they are inviting the president to their churches is because they need money. Right now, every church is constructing. Right now, every church is doing development that needs the support of the president. And you see, a person who feeds you, controls you. So if the president comes today and gives you 20 million shillings as a church, you are not able to tell the president that what you are doing is wrong.
That's it.
Is it true? Yes, so it means that this clergy, they have failed Kenyans in trying to guide the president accordingly, because these are the religious leaders that has their mandate in this country to guide the president accordingly. But now when you are calling the president to support you build a church, at what point will you be advising the president of this is not right, this is not good? So we can't be having democratic kind of church leaders that invite the president to go to these churches to give. And you will be shocked that even if today, if the president was to go to a certain church and he fails to give, those people, they will really cast, including that, they will really cast the president. You didn't give us anything. So we as Kenyans, as believers, we should put our leaders into account, our church leaders, that if the president comes to worship, let the president come and worship as a Kenyan.
Yes.
Let him worship. If he gives some few offering, let him give some few offering. But let's not put the president on the spot that
Yes.
the president
Yes.
has to go to a certain area and give 20 billion. And at the same time, president also, he should stop his appetite for giving money in churches unnecessarily, because he should just go there and worship, because we already have system to take care of many of these issues that the president is trying to solve through a church.
Yes.
We already have, because if the systems are working, then why should the president go in church and maybe sponsor kids to go to school? Maybe why? And if we have a free education that is that's functional, we don't need it. So the president should sit down and make these systems to work for Kenyans to be able to benefit, for him to go to church freely without thinking that if I have to go to SDA today, I have to give 20 million. And number two, the clergy, they should also curb their appetite for the presidential money, so that when the president is coming to church, they have a lot of expectation how much he's going to give us. And they are like, president, even if you listen to their speeches, today we are building a hall, today we are having a school. These are the things that should be attended to through the government system. Let the president make the system works, so
Yes.
that a common mwananchi enjoys, so that when he attends church, he is not obligated to give 20 or 10 million or 30, because everyone knows the salary of the president. Because if the president is giving 20 million or 7 million every Sunday, he should be able to tell us where is this money coming from. It is very unfortunate that this money might be coming from the State House expenditure, and that is not what the money for State House expenditure is meant for. No. It's meant for do other things. We want to hear stories that the president used that emergency fund to try and help the country move forward. The other day we were having, you see, if you walk here in Nairobi, here, even coming to this studio, you will meet very heavy traffic all over. Why don't we have the emergency funds and build bioduct roads to help reduce traffic along this Gatanga road? Those are the things that we want to hear, so that when come 2027, people vote the president based on the service delivery. But now you see, we don't want to go to 2027 while we are complaining. And if the president thinks that Kenyans don't know, Kenyans, and that's why they are aware. And we want to thank people who are in government institutions that release these spots. Release them to Kenyans so that Kenyans can judge the president as per his words, as per what he promised Kenyans during 2022 campaigns.
That's it, pretty much. Now, it's been brought to our attention this morning, Mr. Mumbo, as you get to respond to this question, that budget for 17 billion shillings is higher than the White House budget. So Donald Trump can never come close to spending 17 billion shillings annually in his White House budget. But our president is surpassing that. Is that a red flag?
Yes, it is. I think one of the things that we need to be able to say here is that President William RUTO in his manifesto preached water, but right now he's actually drinking wine.
Yes.
So if you look at the budgets within the expenditure budgets for the president and everything around some of the projects that we are having, it's actually just beyond expectations. Leave alone even whatever the president is actually spending in the State House and his allies and the people, then some of the things that actually doing in the State House for that case.
Yes.
Let's just talk about Talanta Stadium that is here. Talanta Stadium, by the time we would have already paid for everything, it would be 148 billion. Not even Camp Nou, not even São Paulo, one of the biggest stadiums in Brazil,
not even the
has
Emirates
been constructed by that amount of money. Not even Emirates itself. So if you look at some of the projects taking place, that's why I told you that this is actually devolved kind of budgeted corruption. There is nothing bigger. There's no better way you can be able to put it.
Yes.
Because you see, when president, before he came to office, when he was a deputy president, like my brother said here, there are some of the things he talked about. He will be able to scrap this. He will be able to deal with this. He will be able to deal with this corruption and A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3. But now look at whatever is actually happening under his watch. Do you now believe when Uhuru Kenyatta told us that 2 billion is being stolen every day? Can now me and you believe that 2 billion is being stolen every day? You've just heard somebody here talk about how much money is being spent per day, as per the state. That is state house only. But now, do you believe when it was being said that 2 billion is actually being stolen every other day? So, Simba, on this budget, one of the biggest troubles, and that what I think we need to be able to call the president out to be able to look into it as early as Jana, because if he doesn't, then as a country, we don't have a country here.
Yes.
We don't have in fact, I agree with somebody who said that this country should be demolished and everybody should go, should go home. I don't know where home, but I think this is our home. So generally, I think, like my brother has mentioned here, some of the projects that are actually being done by the president, they should not be done by the president. Those projects should go back to the National Assembly. Some of the things that is actually doing, dishing out money, giving money to the people in churches and all that kind of. If the president went to a church and gave his money without even mentioning how much it was, who will complain about it? That is his money, that is his own offering to the church.
Yes.
But promising the church 20 million, 10 million, every other church you go to, like right now, I can be sure that since the year started, actually, 2026, whatever he's been able to promise and give out even in churches, it's more than 150 million. We're just 3 months in down the line since the year started. So looking at the same, I think the figures are just worrying, and if we're not very careful,
that's it.
We don't have a country here.
Pretty much. Yeah. Good. Amode, direct question to you. It's not a question, looks like an attack. And this comes from, called himself Chapati Slayer. How are you doing, sir? Hopefully you had chapati this morning and things are good. It says, nonsense. If the president gives out this money in all these harambes, in all these contributions, that money in one way or another finds itself into the pockets of the citizens. Omondi should be informed. It will only be bad if the report says that that money was lost. We should not question how the president spends, because his expenditure is for him to work and make sure that Kenya is working.
That's a very good comment for a bright Kenyan who is not concerned about the growth of this country. You see, the president is not running this country from his bedroom. The president has like branches. He has like different ministerial departments that carries out the government activities. Yes. If it is education, we have the Minister of Education. If it is land, we have Minister of Lands. Every other department has their own ministry to deal with these issues. So we can't say that the money that is being given to the president is what the president is using to run this country, and this money is the money that is ending up at a common mwananchi pocket. Then we should ask ourselves, why are we having these CS that are being paid in the departments that have a budget? Because these departments, all of them has budgets from the budget controller. But what is going to State House is for, and from what the budget is saying, that it's about transport. That transport, local transport alone is exceedingly overwhelming Kenyans. That is what the report is saying. So it's not about money that is being given to Kenyans. So if there is a Kenyan that is very comfortable with how the State House is spending, we are saying that we don't want the State House, the president, we say that he was not able to move, but at the same time, the expenditure must be controlled. If a Kenyan has to get money when the president has to give money to these churches, now what happens to people who don't go to church and believers? How do they get this money? What happens to Muslims? How do they get this money that the president have to give, so that the money has to reach Kenyans when the president gives this money? It's a very bad notion that we are saying that it is our money that is being given to us. Why don't the government make the system work so that we are not expecting those handouts from those churches to reach a common Kenyan? Yeah. Why? Just make the system to work so that even this particular gentleman is able to pay taxes and able to enjoy in this country without depending for the president to come to a certain area to give something so that he can get something. No, let's just make the system work. When we make the system to work, it will help the president now to do his job. Yes. And the president will know that he, as a common Kenyan, he can even go to church and worship without any other expectations. And you see, initially, we used to have, during the President Uhuru government, but the First Lady used to have a Beyond Zero campaign that used to deal with the issues of women and such issues. And right now, we are not seeing what any other project the First Lady is doing in State House that is touching the lives of Kenyans or even other women. So we don't have such projects for us to justify that this money that is going to the State House is not only for the president, but is also for the office of the First Lady. So let's be realistic with the budget that we give to the State House. And I can tell you, even the president is shocked by such kind of a report, because he's wondering, how am I spending this money? Who is spending this money? It means there are people there at the State House, people who are very incompetent, that are siphoning the public money through in the name of the public, in the name of State House expenditure. And people should be replaced. Some people should lose their job so that the Kenyans can feel that this is the president of Mama Mboga that we voted in. The president should stop all this and sit down and work at a Rambe House so that we can reduce this expenditure for meeting a State House. Yes. He is no longer the deputy. You see, initially he was the deputy president. He used to meet people at Karen. But now he's the president. We want to see him in the office because it will be very cheap, I can tell you, for free. You cannot call over 10,000 people to come to a Rambe House. True or false? You can't call over 10,000 people to come there. But they'll have a representative or their governor that will come and listen to what the president is intending to do in Wajir, and this is what the people are looking for. And the president, if there are funds, they will be given. And just to note, these counties have budget allocations from the same national government. So we don't need the president to give. All the ministries have a budget allocation. And that's why the president, that's why it says the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. The president, why he is up there, that's something that he should not be involved in. He should be getting reports and amending and ensure that this thing is happening, A, B, C, D. But now when he has to give 20 million every day, tomorrow we'll be told that the president have spent 1 trillion and we'll say that money went to common Kenyans who voted him. Then that means that we have to scrap all the ministerial that we have and take and send all the CS home so that the president can work from his pocket. We allocate all the money to the State House budget controller so that the president can be using them to deal with the Kenyans' problems every day from his pocket. And if that is not the case, then let everyone who is in a ministerial position work to make the work of the president more easy. The reason why the president is giving this money to these small churches is because the poverty is very high, and people expecting to call the president to come. They think that when the president comes, the president will give something, and it is true. And the president also should not use this opportunity to go to, he's just asking, how many people are you in that church? We are 500, we are coming. What are you guys are doing? We are having project ABCD, we are coming. That should not be the agenda of the president. Yes. Let the president just go to church and worship. That's you see, because that's where there's a lot of expenditure. My brother have said here that the money can even run in a month almost 150 million. And we know the salary of the president. And we wonder, is this his personal money or this is the Kenyan money? And why is he dishing it like that? And we have more other bigger problems for Kenyans. That's why it's very difficult for even people to see what the president is doing, because he does two positive, he messes around 5 of them. So people are so focused on what he's doing badly. People are not focused on what he's doing good. And if for him to have goodwill of the people, let him get focused in doing things that benefit a common mwananchi, so that we should not stop complaining.
Yes, Mumbo, even as you add on that, because it's actually your turn then to go in and speak. I've got this one from, I'm gonna read it to you, just as it is. This is George Diano, who's saying, tell Mr. Mumbo that money has been approved by the same parliament that we voted for. So trust that your parliament is doing its work. Approval constitutionally means that the money has been used as per the constitution. So this is all noise. Let the president work in peace.
To that, but before I come to that, let me respond to the other gentleman who actually had posed a question to my brother here. You see, Simba, if that is the same way that we expect that our money should be spent, yes. You see, our taxpayers' money should not be given to us as the stipends. It should not. You cannot be, what if the president never comes to my church? What if the president never steps to my area? So you should not expect that is how money should be spent. And you see, that is not the function of the money of the office of the president. The president doesn't need to be able to come to my church to give me something for him to be able to prove that there is a development that is being taken to my area. If the president wants to come and worship with us in our church, he can even come without even giving anything. And we are okay with that. So if you tell me that the gentleman's conversation, the gentleman's question about saying that the money belongs to the people, so if it's being given to the people, then that is the right thing to be able to do. That is not the formula. That's not what the Constitution says about the money of the office of the president.
Yes.
There's a question that you've been able to pose to my side about...
That's it, the parliament is approving, so it's being used constitutionally, so let them work in peace.
And you've heard me say that the parliament has been captured, and that's why they're approving this money. They're not approving because they're happy. I'm not blaming the president in any way, in one way or another. Yes. I'm actually blaming the people approving the money. How did they end up approving the budget that was overspent? That is a question of interest here. So if you tell me right now that you overspent the money and just approved, Parliament is not approving this money because of anything. They have been captured by the executive, and that's why they're approving this money. And you see, my brother mentioned something that we actually really don't want to be able to mention here as well. That you see, majority side of the Parliament are actually siding with the government side. And that is where the trouble, that is where the rain started beating us.
Yes. So
the moment we talk about that, I agree with him on all that he's actually saying, that the parliament is the one that have been able to prove it. Have they approved this money under zero pressure? That should be the question he's actually asking me. But now asking me if the parliament has been, of course the parliament has approved the money. Yes, we agree, tick. Under which circumstances has money been approved as per the constitution? Is it an emergency fund? It's not. The constitution says that the money will be approved after it's been used under emergency. So that means they're not following even the constitution. So parliament having been captured is one of the biggest troubles here.
That's it.
The president is not even the problem, it's the parliament. If parliament said no, this one has not been spent in the correct manner, or even accountability, things being brought, we don't need to be able to wait until the control of budget is actually bringing everything in the limelight. Parliament needs to be able to tell us that the money that has been overspent by the office of the president is blah, blah, blah. 1, 2, 3 has been spent on this, 3, 4 things has been spent on this, and now we have accountability to this level. But if that is not being done, then that means the members of parliament have failed. Even if they have approved these monies, they have not approved in the correct manner.
Pretty much.
That is my argument.
That's it. Moni, we only have, I want you to take 3 minutes to this because there are a couple of questions there that have been asked to you that I want you to respond to quickly. And the last issue that we have for you this morning on how this money has been spent is on a blotted team at State House. And this is what the Controller Budget said. The majority of this money has been used into payment of salaries at State House, where the president has a huge team of advisors and some positions that have been questioned. For example, the position of the spokesperson of State House and the government spokesperson. Positions that have been seen to override each other. And all these offices also have staff that is attached to all of them. Do we need to have government spokesperson and State House spokesperson? Who do these gentlemen speak for?
Maybe we define. You see, the State House spokesperson speaks on behalf of the State House as an institution. But now, the government's spokesperson speaks on behalf of the government. The government now having all the other institutions. But just to say, it's that
when State House speaks, is that not the government that is speaking?
You see, that's now where we bring the question comes in. We see we can have a very perennial kind of a definition that the State House spokesperson speaks for the State House, then the government. But now we ask this question. If they were addressing Kenyans, all of us from a common mwananchi, they know that these are communication from State House. A communication from State House is a government communication.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
So they should be able to tell us the purpose of this, because these are two unnecessary offices that you see initially, back then we used to have Mutua. If Mutua speaks, that's the government speaks. That's it.
Yes.
And all questions, he used to answer all questions, whether for State House and whether for the government, all these questions he used to answer them. Right now, we are in a situation where we're having Isaac Mwaura, right? And he can easily, that's the only person that I saw at Harambee House trying to address Kenyans. And you wonder, what is he doing? What is he doing? So these are some of the positions that should be scrapped. We have one position, one communication center, because we don't want a situation whereby the State House spokesperson says A, B, C, D, and the government spokesperson says A, B, C, D, things that does not align, because they can't be aligning. If they are aligning, then we only need one. But for the purpose that we need two different, it means these are two different departments that run completely differently. I think one of the things that the government should do is that they should lower a lot of people that are hanging around the president, that are being paid with people without portfolio, people who are not properly employed by the people of Kenya to hang around the president. The president should reduce his team. We don't need many advisors, because you hear some of the advisors that have left, people like Akinwalo, they say that they're doing nothing. They were doing nothing. They were not even advising the president. It means the president has people that he asks for advice when he wants to do things. These are the people that are picking salary from the taxpayers' money around the president and are not advising the president. Those positions should be scrapped off, so that the president tells us that I need 5 people to. And what is this that we are having almost 30 people advising the president? The president is one person. How many times is good? What if all of them disagrees on a certain point? What happens? So the buck stops with the president. So the president should reduce the people that are hanging around him, that are not employed by Kenyans, so that the wage bill for State House can come down.
That's it. Yes. Pretty much. Gentlemen, I'm only going to give you 15 seconds each to just state this, because we're supposed to step out of the studio this morning. Mumbo, I've got this one directed to you. Let me just pick it from my device right there. Here it is. Here it goes. This is from Honorable Tony. Tony, how are you doing? Can't wait to see you tomorrow. He's saying, well, I do not blame the president. The president asks, he is given. Direct all your anger to your member of parliament. 15 seconds.
Does that mean that I have to address Alasia?
Yes.
He's been doing his job.
It's not spoken about it.
But he's been doing his job.
He's not spoken about it. He's not going to Parliament and said, look here, this 17 billion we can't carry as a country. We got to bring the president back to order.
You know, Simba, one of the things that I've actually mentioned here,
yes,
every other time that I'm on these benches is this.
Yes.
Selassie alone cannot be able to hold the President William Ruto accountable, cannot be able to hold the Parliament accountable.
Yes.
Remember, the country has more than 290 elected members of Parliament. You see, the Parliament, the government side has actually the majority part of it. Are these majority people, are this majority side of the government, of the Parliament, really doing their work? That should be the question.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Mondi, here's the last one. Kindly take 15 seconds because we're stepping out of the studio this morning. And good morning. How are you doing? I'm saying that this conversation I like, but there are grounds for impeaching this president if our senators actually stand up and act. That no state department whatsoever, even on an emergency basis, needs to double its expenditure.
Knows the solution. But now you see that not today, if we say that we are collecting the signatures to impeach the president, I can tell you for free, we will not get those signatures. You will hear those issues or the signatures or ABCD. Me, I want to tell Kenyans, let's put our members of parliament into accountability, so that when such a budget comes to Parliament, they scrutinize before. The reason why we have approval, it's because there is scrutiny. You can't approve what you have not gone through. When they are going through this budget, this State House advance expenditure, let this State House budget controller explains to them the purpose. Let them approve what pleases the Kenyans that voted for them. Because the work of the president to say, I need A, B, C, D. It's them to handle that, Mr. President. This is what, and we see we period that we have competent people in the office of the president to be able to advise him that, Mr. President, this is not possible now. This one we can do in the next budget, this one A, B, C, D. So that the people of Kenya are not suffering, because at the end of the day, the buck stops with the president. And the president has to restructure. If he doesn't, it will be very difficult for him to even sail for 2027.
That's it. Oof. So, just as we close the day, they're going to spend 2.2 million shillings today. It's gone. You can't have it. Yeah. In fact, tea is costing 69 million shillings at the State House. I would like to have a taste of that tea one of these fine days as well. A few times I've been there, we've not been given tea. Need to wake up one of these fine days and we got tested. Maybe we can have a proper debate once we test that 69 million shillings tea. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me in the studio this morning. Take them back online to the time that they joined us at Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. The hashtag is The Morning Drift. Tomorrow, we talk about another thing happening in the government. The president allegedly had CIA team who didn't want to attend his event arrested. What are these claims? We talk about it once we wake up tomorrow. Good morning and goodbye. See you tomorrow.